When you come to Kvarner, treat yourself to an experience you will remember. Enjoy the luxurious ambience. Experience superior service. Indulge in endless pleasures. The pearl of the tourism offer in the pearl of the Adriatic. Liburnia, Hotels and Villas.
Well, that advert is a little bit sunnier than the weather we've been greeted with this morning. We return from the summer break in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series to the Autodrom Most, where it is certainly mixed conditions at the moment, and that's not really mixed, it's firmly in the wet weather bracket at the moment. As you can see, a fairly warm morning nonetheless. Most has a history in the summertime of being an incredibly warm venue, but actually a little bit cooler today. Lots of cloud cover, but also lots of standing water around the circuit. We've already had machines running today from the Euro Legends, the main sport category of the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, as well as the European Truck Racing Championship, and both categories have reported plenty of standing water at various points of the circuit. They've also found a slightly drier line around the track over the course of the morning so far, which may well be to the benefit of our drivers who are getting ready to go out there on their wet weather Hoosier tyres, which, having to think back, it's been a little while since we've seen them strapped to the car in any capacity. But as you can see, a drier line is appearing, but there are certain parts of this circuit where the water is still pooling, and that is going to be a challenge over the course of the two qualifying sessions that we are bringing you this morning. EuroNASCAR Pro will be up first with their qualifying, and then the top 10 shootout, the Super Pole session. Then EuroNASCAR 2 will be out there for their 20-minute qualifying, which will determine pole without a Super Pole shootout. So plenty of intrigue going into this one, primarily because of the title battle in EuroNASCAR Pro. It's been very close running. You may remember all the way back at Valencia, the season opener, it was Lucas Lasser who surprised everyone, including himself, by taking an early championship lead. But since then, Gianmarco Ercoli has rallied, and Gianmarco Ercoli is your points leader in EuroNASCAR Pro coming into this weekend. Just 12 points clear, though, in the championship on 212. Lucas Lasser on 200. Anthony Kumpen on 187 points, so just 25 points off of Ercoli. You can definitely still challenge from there. Vittorio Gorelli in fourth position, and Mark Goossens rounding out the championship top five. Ulysse Delceau leading the junior trophy points, and Fabrizio Armetta, comfortable leader in the Challenger Trophy order. Just 40 points in it between the top five. If you go down to the top eight, it's just 48 points between the top eight. So very close running. Of course, later in the season, we go to double points. When we go to the season finale at the Circuit Zolder in Belgium, we score double points. So effectively, you go into that season finale often really not knowing what's going to happen with 160 points available. There's also the X factor of the drop scores as well. There you see the information graphic regarding that. The 8 best results out of the first 10 races will go through or will count towards your regular season scoring, and then going into the final 2 rounds at the Circuit Zolder, double points and double bonus points for all races. So that is a significant leap forward in terms of how much a race is worth, especially how much a win is worth going into the final salvo of the weekend. It's a very full paddock this weekend. This weekend, as mentioned, shared with the FIA European Truck Racing Championship. So it is quite the smorgasbord of different action for the fans here in the Czech Republic at the Autodrom Most. Big rigs and big stock cars meeting in the melting pot that is the Autodrom Most this weekend. Have some interesting entries up and down the paddock, a few new faces, as we often do after the summer break. We're also seeing a few returns as well. It's a warm welcome back to Michaela Dorchikova, who you may remember joined us at Valencia at the start of the year. Michaela, a driving force behind the ARC Bratislava team that flies the flag for Slovakia in the highest levels of sports car racing. Dorchikova is in the number 1 car, and she is joined by Stefani Mogorovic. So it's an all-female driver squad in the number 1 and Academy Motorsport Alex Caffey team this weekend, which is great to see. And I'm interested to see how Dorchikova performs this time. I believe she has a decent amount of mileage here at the Autodrom Most. We also have a return for Yevgen Sokolovsky as well. He's been in and out so far this season. He's also been working hard in GT racing this year. I think is slowly moving his way from GT4s into GT3s with a little bit of EuroNASCAR thrown in there as well. But he returns to the number 48 Marco Stipp Motorsport entry. Jack Davidson is once again there in the EuroNASCAR 2 order. So lots of interesting stories coming into this second half of the season in EuroNASCAR Pro. Will we see more qualifying heroics from Vladimiros Siortsis in the next few moments? What about Anthony Kumpen? What can Anthony Kumpen do? Wanting to try and really grow his aspirations in the second half of the season. First half of the year has maybe been a little bit disappointing by the lofty standards of Anthony Kumpen, and he'll be looking to get some wins and some good results on the board coming into this weekend at Most. Of course, you've got Liam Hazemans, who has not had much luck at all in his first season, focusing strictly on EuroNASCAR Pro, the reigning EuroNASCAR 2 champion. Let's see if the reigning champions can do anything in the rain then. As you see, the cars are released onto the circuit. And it's Fabrizio Armetta in the number 55, who is the Trojan horse here. Oh, already going wide, going through the first chicane. The first 2 corners of what is a total of 21 across the lap. This circuit just over 2.6 miles, 4.2 kilometers. But 21 corners packed in to that distance. It's a very technical circuit and a very challenging one at the wheel. I think plenty of room. We're ripe for potential errors around this circuit. As you see, a little bit of a look at the track map as the cars head out on their outlap. 2.617 miles, 4.2 kilometers, and an almighty 21 corners per Autodrom Most's own count, although some of them are, let's say, a little insignificant, really, more of a twist of the wheel than a full-on cornering challenge. But 21 turns is still an immense challenge, and as you can see, a lot of them are switchbacks. They go from left to right to left to right to left to right. You really do have to put in a shift as a driver. Recently watched and commentated on some sidecar racing around this circuit, and it's incredibly physical for the sidecar passengers, who of course have to launch themselves across the vehicle at every turn to shift the weight. And while you don't have to do that in a car, especially in a big physical stock car that we're running here in EuroNASCAR, it's still an immense challenge, and a very manual car. You can guarantee there's going to be a lot of sliding, as Fabrizio Armetta just adeptly displayed. There's also going to be a lot of seesawing at the wheel. Massimilio Lanza there in the 88, just getting a bit of a toe off Fabrizio Armetta. Now, of course, the first couple of corners here are critical You've got such a long, deep braking zone from a high speed at the end of the main straight to the incredibly tight first chicane. Especially in these conditions, that section is ripe for error. You can quite easily just get a smidge too ambitious under braking. And from there, you really just have to hope that there are no obstacles in your way and that you get it stopped before the tyre walls. You see there Anthony Kumpen in the number 24, the PK Car Sport entry. Busy weekend this, the PK Car Sport. They are splitting their efforts between this facility and the Zolder circuit as well, where the 24-hour race is taking place. Long-time teammate to Anthony Kumpen in GT racing, Bert Longin, will be leading the charge for PK Car Sport over there in Belgium, where of course we will have our season finale, the double point season finale, later on in the season. Looks like Kumpen though is fairly sure-footed in the early going here in this session, which is certainly to be admired. And that comes with experience, quite frankly. At this point in his career, Anthony Kumpen has faced, I think, just about every weather condition there is, apart from maybe snow. From monsoons to Moroccan heat, Anthony Kumpen has just about taken it all on over the course of his career. Out of the 21st and final corner come the cars, and Gianmarco Ercoli, who managed to get his way past Armetta, will be the one to set the early benchmark at 2-minute 1.144, but Anthony Kumpen lowers that bar, a 2-minute 0.990. So Anthony Kumpen, who we were following there for the second half of that lap, is currently the quickest out there, although Tobias Dauenhauer, the youngster in the number 99 promotion car, lest we forget promotion, joining the championship for the first time at Brands Hatch in June, just 2 months into their tenure as a EuroNASCAR operation. They've been a bit of a challenger brand so far this season. They've rather been the Pepsi to the more established brand's Coke. And Tobias Dauenhauer proving again that the 99 car is a force to be reckoned with. A 2-minute 0.175 puts him top at the end of the first flying laps. Of course, it's a long way to go, but that's still very, very intriguing. So just 0.02 of a second in it at the top of the order. Vittorio Girelli also setting a 2-minute 0.1. 2-minute 0.196 for Girelli in the 72. The Team Blake Molan entry. Another driver who has had a disproportionate gap between his luck and his pace this year, although Girelli managed to score, of course, a win at his home circuit of Vallelunga, at the very circuit where he secured his initial racing license, and that was a big celebration. Tobias Dauenhauer there, we were just following the 99 car, currently fastest on the timing screens. For Dauenhauer, this is something of a second home race, really. We're not too far away from the German border. Often German national circuit national championships do include Most on the calendar, because it is quite a short drive from southeastern Germany. Gianmarco Ercoli has set a new benchmark, a 158.488 for the number 54 driver, the Cal Racing Championship leader, starting to show his hand a little bit. No improvement that time from Tobias Dauenhauer. In fact, his time across the line was a 2-minute 6, so I think he may have made an error somewhere out there on circuit. Girelli has also gone sub 2 minutes on a 159.462. There he goes through shot, I believe that was him. But Gianmarco Ercoli, almost a second quicker than anybody that time by. There's the 48, the returning Yevgen Sokolovsky. A man with a showroom that I wish to visit one day. His GT Auto business housing many a spectacular car. And if you find Yevgen Sokolovsky on social media, on Instagram, you can see his stock and his passion for his cars. Really incredible stuff. Now there's been a change to the entry list that I missed. So apparently Yevgen Sokolovsky's not here. So this is Jack Davidson. Okay, that's interesting. My apologies for that. On the version of the entry list that I've got, it still lists Yevgen Sokolovsky. So my apologies for that. Sokolovsky is not present after all this weekend. So Davidson is pulling double duty. That's really interesting. So Jack Davidson getting his opportunity in EuroNASCAR Pro, and he's using it well at the moment, actually. Just realizing he's all the way up to 6th in the standings in the 48 car. So Jack Davidson, as you see on the tower there, all the way up in 6th position. Tobias Dowenhauer has just moved up to 2nd place as well, as you can see, 1:58.288. So exactly 1 minute 58.200 is currently your benchmark. Gianmarco Ercoli once again improving. There's the number 8 car of Dario Casso. As someone who grew up in the latter stages of the Gen 4 era in the NASCAR Cup Series, I see this livery and I can't help but think Dale Earnhardt Jr. circa around 2006. I'm sure that's a not insignificant inspiration behind that specific colour scheme. Dario Casso, always a spectacle at the wheel. Currently 11th fastest out there on circuit. Some good information from down in the pits from our intrepid reporter Andre Viegold, who points out that neither of the Hendricks Motorsport cars have set a lap time just yet. They have been out on the circuit, but they merely did an outlap and have not yet registered a flyer. So that's interesting. Both actually, I don't think we've seen the number 7 out at all. No, Martin Dubek is out there in 18th, but Giorgio Maggi also not registering a competitive time so far. Neither has Liam Hasemans, of course. Giorgio Maggi in the 18 is part of the Race Art Technology squad. It's, Hendricks Motorsport keeping their powder a little bit dry. Martin Dubek currently down in 18th place, having set one competitive, well, not even a competitive time really, but only having done one sighting lap. And in the case of Liam Hasemans, he's still yet to go out there. And as you can see, 3 minutes and 55 seconds. Liam, you don't have long, my friends. Hopefully he gets out there shortly. As we can see, it's a 2-minute lap there or thereabouts. If he wants to do even one flying lap, he's got to get out there, well, now, frankly. There is the number 3 car. Of course, formerly the domain of Frédéric Gabillon, but he stepped down heading into Vallelunga, and Paul Giffreau made quite the seismic impact in EuroNASCAR Pro on his first weekend at Vallelunga. Even found himself on pole position for race 2. That first EuroNASCAR Pro victory is going to have to wait a little bit longer. But he did take his maiden win in EuroNASCAR 2 at Vallelunga last time out. So 2 minutes and 45 seconds left on the clock. Time is running out. Liam Hasemans is out there on circuit. He's just gone 17th fastest, so he should have a couple more attempts, but only going to get 2 more flying laps in for the end of the session. But good to see that Hasemans is at least out there and doesn't have an issue with the car. 17th overall, though, that is not the starting position that he wants. Number 14 car in the hands of Ulysse Delso, powering out of the first chicane. Running in tandem with another of the Speedhouse cars there. I believe that was Lucas Lasserre. Yes, indeed, there is Lucas Lasserre. 4 wheels skidding into one of the corners. Hasemans across the line. Has he improved? Yes, he has. He's moved up into the top 10. 9th fastest for Hasemans then. 2-minute point 038. So this is going to be his final flying lap because he crossed the line with about 1 minute and 45 seconds left to go. So this is his final flying lap. He's just about within the top 10. Of course, we're not setting the grid here. We're just determining, well, we are setting the grid from positions 11 down, but in regard to the top 10, they, of course, are trying to qualify for the Super Pole session that will immediately follow this 20-minute session. 15 this weekend. Just hearing that Giorgio Maggi and Thomas Tuffel's cars, the two from Race Art Technology, they were being worked long into the night. So Giorgio Maggi and Thomas Tuffel's cars, the 18 and the 34, it's already been a long day for, or long weekend for Race Art, who are here past midnight getting the cars sorted. So final flying laps will be coming in this time. We've just seen Tobias Downhauer go to the top, a 158.102. Again, of course, that doesn't net him pole position going into Super Pole, but that is a bit of an authoritative stamp. However, Vittorio Gorelli in the number 72 with a 157.860. He goes quicker still. You've got some interesting names there in the top 10. Fabrizio Armetta, currently 6th fastest. You've got Jack Davidson, of course, pulling double duty this weekend. He is there in 8th position in the 48 car. Ooh, a little look to the inside there from Vittorio Gorelli on Fabrizio Armetta. Clock has struck 0 then, so final opportunity now for everybody. Can no longer start a flying lap, and you have to finish the one you're on and be done with that. So last chance for any improvements. Who's in the danger zone? Well, it's Dario Casso. You surprise packages outside the top 10 at the moment. Sebastian Blakemolen's outside the top 10. Ulysse Delso is outside the top 10. Vladimiros Siortsis, the qualifying king, is outside the top 10. Martin Dubek as well. He's just improved to 13th position in the number 7 car. However, that is not enough. His final flying lap only brings him up to P13. That will not do it. The benchmark time is a 159.801, so you have to be doing a sub 2-minute time around this circuit in these conditions, and that is tricky. As you can see, the wet tyres are starting to go off really because the circuit is drying, but it's by no means dry, and as you've seen from a few people, they're dipping themselves into the little bit of standing water that is around the circuit to try and cool these tyres down. Gorelli still with the benchmark, that 157.860. I don't think we're going to get too many more improvements, just the last few cars coming across the line to set their final competitive time now. And Dario Casso has been demoted because Ulysse Delso has made an improvement at the very end of the session. So Delso, who I said I was a bit surprised to see him outside the top 10, he's managed to leapfrog up to 8th position. So unfortunately for Dario Casso, he's been eliminated, but a few other fast times coming in. Sebastian Blakemolen goes 5th fastest, so he manages to get himself into the top 10. Ulysse Delso is now out of the top 10 once again because Vladimiros Siortsis has just gone 10th fastest. And I don't think we have any more times to come. I believe everybody has set their flying lap now. So Tobias Downhauer set the fastest time of the session. He managed to find a quicker lap right at the end, a 1:57.744. But of course, it's immaterial really whether you're first or 10th in in this session. The top 10 advancing into the Super Pole that will determine the grid order. But he gets through and goes top. Vittorio Garelli second, Gianmarco Ercoli in third place. Paul Giuffreau up to fourth. Another good showing from Giuffreau. Sebastian Blakemolen, again, I was shocked to see him outside the top 10. He's an experienced hand, and he shows at the end that he had a little bit in reserve. Fifth fastest. Fabrizio Armetta goes P6. That's a very good showing from the Challenger Trophy leader. Seventh place for Anthony Kumpen. He should be okay with that. He can now focus on the Super Pole. Liam Hasemans gets through despite only running a couple of laps there. Jack Davidson on his first run in EuroNASCAR Pro moves himself up into ninth place. That's a good showing from him. And Vladimiros Tsiotsis is your 10th and final to get into the Super Pole session. Unfortunately for Ulysse Delso, despite that late improvement, he couldn't quite hold on to it, and he ends up 11th and first of those that get eliminated. Interesting stuff then in that qualifying session. As you could see there, it was really a battle of who was running last. That's often the case in these wet conditions, or these improving conditions. The trick almost is to make sure you cross the line with just a couple of seconds left on the clock on your final flying lap. We're not lacking for power here at Most, either in the surrounds of the circuit or indeed in the EuroNASCAR garages. As is always the case, the Autodrom Most bringing a lot of fans to attendance. Very popular weekend of racing when the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series comes to town, especially in more recent years where the weekend has been combined with the European trucks. Quite the bumper value weekend for the fans here in the Czech Republic. So 5-minute Super Pole session will begin shortly. The clock is already running on my timing screen, but I think that's probably happened in error because I don't think the cars are out there just yet. If they are, we aren't seeing them right now, but I don't think they are out there at the moment. So it's a 5-minute session in Super Pole, so not long at all to settle back into the action. They won't be able to get a new set of tyres. Cars will head out in the order from that session, so Tobias Downhauer will lead them out there. Certainly being on pole is useful, or being the first out there is useful, because with just 5 minutes on the clock, that could be the difference between getting 2 or 3 flying laps in around some of the circuits. Around here, I'm not so sure it'll make that big of a difference. I think just about everybody should be able to get 2 flying laps in and no more. Clearly, this family know that the forecast is improving because they've got the shorts out despite the wet weather we've experienced this morning. We are expecting mixed conditions, I think, for a majority of this weekend. Hopefully it does brighten up. There you see the Whelen logos. Of course, Whelen have long been the title sponsors here of EuroNASCAR. One of many great partners who helps bring the EuroNASCAR circus around Europe. Use your tyres, of course. We talk about them a fair bit because their rubber is what's adorned to the cars. Again, I think it's been a while since we've used the wet batch in any capacity. Kenol Performance Oil, McDonald's, TJ Titanium Jewellery among our partners for the EuroNASCAR season in 2023. Cars heading out onto the circuit then. 5 minutes of Super Pole. I believe it's going to be very much fair in the sense that everybody is going to get 2 flying laps. Of course, if you're further back in the queue, that increases your chance of tripping up on somebody else, so that could be a talking point here. The queue in the order of that top 10 from the previous qualifying session as they go out onto the shootout now. With 4 minutes and 25 seconds on the clock then, Tobias Downhauer will be looking to repeat his heroics there. The German youngster in the junior class, as is this man Paul Dufro. Downhauer, I think, with an outside shot potentially of the junior championship. He's been scoring decent points so far, albeit with missing Valencia. But there again, of course, 2 scores to drop coming out of the first 5 weekends, the first 10 rounds. So who knows? I reckon he could be in the conversation for the junior championship coming into Zolder at the end of the year. Certainly he's been in the conversation for the overall top 5 on more than a few occasions so far this season. It was such a shame in 2022 that Downhauer didn't get to perform the full season that I think was initially anticipated with Hendrix Motorsport, and now he's showing the way for promotion, the new team with the number 99. Keep an eye on Jack Davidson as well. He's done a lot of racing at Knockhill up in Scotland, and with experience at Knockhill comes experience of wet weather racing. So Jack Davidson could be a favourite here with just 2 flying laps to try and do something. It is very much a pressure cooker environment, and not optimal conditions, not just because it's raining, but also because it's not just because it's wet, but because it's no longer actually raining. As you can see, the dry line is evident, but it's also by no means dry enough to go onto the slick tyres. So what you have is wet tyres being rather harangued and overheated as the lap goes on. A lot of heat going through the carcass as the cars slide around trying to find some grip that really isn't there. So particularly over the course of that previous session, with everyone just staying out there and trying to find some lap time, that could be a big dilemma now. Who's got some rubber left? 1 minute and 55 seconds left to go then. Tobias Downhauer will be the one to set the benchmark. Throttle down, turn 21, the final corner, 2.6 miles, 4.2 kilometers, but a lot of apexes packed into that. Downhauer sets the early benchmark, and it's a big improvement, a 155.676, 155.332 for Seb Blakemolen as well. So Blakemolen goes top. All 10 cars have set their first time, and Blakemolen is the fastest of all with a 1:55.332. Well, he only got into Super Pole at the last gasp, but Blakemolen is really showing his stuff here. I believe in the wet weather conditions, the tyres won't have been carried over potentially from the previous session. And that would potentially go some way to explaining the big jump in performance once the wet weather comes into play, of course. The rule as to running the tyres all weekend kind of comes out of favour because, well, we could need slicks later on. So Sebastian Blakemolen, he could well be on the verge of a pole position. But Tobias Downhauer will lead them home across the line for the second and final time in this session. The clock has already struck 0. Downhauer, I think, will be on a charge. It's worth looking at the number 99 car if we possibly can, because Downhauer could well lower the benchmark. Sebastian Blakemolen has lifted out of it, so he's decided a 55.6 is all he can do. Where's Tobias Downhauer? He should be coming around the final corner. He is coming across the line now. Downhauer crosses the line, and it's not an improvement, a 1:55.7, but a 1:54.8 for Vittorio Garelli. Fabrizio Armetta crossing the line. Armetta only 8th fastest there. But Vittorio Garelli with a 1:54.842. The quickest across the line on the second attempt. He will be our pole sitter. Armetta has done enough there to get 8th position, so he'll be happy with that. And just some shifting of the timing screen now. I think there may have been a time deleted. I think a time was deleted there, and that was for Downhauer. The timing screen is moving around wildly on my screen. Which is disconcerting to say the least, but I make it Vittorio Garelli on pole position with a 1:54.842. Paul Dufresne with a 1:55.261. Anthony Kumpen all the way up in 3rd place, and Seb Blakemolen in 4th. So there you go, there's an experienced second row of the grid. Liam Hazeman's 5th, Fabrizio Armetta actually 6th. So Armetta got to the 3rd row of the grid. The timing screen is just trying to make its mind up versus the race and qualifying results, which is interesting. 7th place for Coley, or rather for Kumpen. The timing screen is fluctuating wildly on my screen, so it's very difficult to give you the results with any accuracy because they keep shifting. But Garelli, we know for sure, is our pole sitter. Dufresne and Kumpen should be there alongside Sebastian Blakemolen as the first 4. Hazeman's Downhauer also setting good times. Quite surprised to see the 54 car so far down. Gianmarco Ercoli, only 7th fastest. That is, say, more than a little bit disappointing for our championship leader. He's going to have some work to do from there. Siortzis will be a little bit disappointed, I think, to only be 10th fastest. He's been a bit of a wonder in qualifying in both EuroNASCAR 2 and EuroNASCAR Pro this season. So it will be Vittorio Garelli who celebrates a pole position, and fresh off of a win at Vallelunga, that really does bring the momentum towards the 72 Blakemolen pit. That's quite exciting for his chances. In the standings, he is currently all the way up in fourth, of course, on 184 points. Just 28 off of Gianmarco Ercoli. And within 3 points of Anthony Kumpen as well. So Vittorio Garelli could well cement himself as primary title contender going into our last couple of rounds of the season. Of course, from here, from the two races this weekend, we head to Oschersleben and then to Zolder. So it really is the sharp end of the season now after the summer break. Vittorio Garelli starts off his second half of the year in the best fashion possible. A few of our fans starting off their morning in the best fashion possible with some hot food, which is probably ideal in what is a slightly cool morning by Most standards. Probably warmer than a summer's day in Britain nonetheless, but Most is an infamously humid circuit. I think the fact that there is some cloud cover this weekend is probably much to the relief of some of our drivers. It's never not a physical experience hustling a EuroNASCAR machine around this track.
Dolazim.
So Vittorio Garelli with a 154.842, 3-second jump between qualifying and Superpole. I think that's in part because of fresh tyres being bolted onto machines for Superpole because of the wet conditions. Of course, normally the tyre that you start with in quali is the one that you then run through to the end of race 2, but it doesn't apply in these wet conditions. So one has to assume that's why we found 3 seconds. Everyone finding a lot more speed there in Superpole. 4 minutes away then from the EuroNASCAR 2 session. And so in EuroNASCAR 2, it's not quite as close at the sharp end, I say that. It's just 1 point, 1 point more of a gap between Vladimiros Tsiortzis and Alberto Nasca. So Tsiortzis, who's just been out there in the EuroNASCAR Pro session, which will no doubt help him, 13 points clear of Alberto Nasca, who took an emotional victory at the Vallelunga circuit last month. Paul Giffreau, third in the points, just 17 off as well. It's currently looking like a bit of a 3-horse race, but Jill Linster is there as well on 198 points, just 29 off of Tsiortzis. So he could be a contender too. Dombrowski, who's the leader of the rookie trophy, is also up in 5th in the standings as well. Dombrowski has consistently been there or thereabouts. However, there's Andre Viegel, there's Vittorio Garelli. Let's hear from our pole sitter.
Thank you so much, Adam. I'm here with the pole sitter, Vittorio Garelli. Quite wet out there. How was it for you?
Yeah, it was very tricky conditions because it was wet, but it was drying out. So it was really, really very slippery. So my lap was like I was sideways all the lap. It was very, very tricky. But we had a good car, fantastic car. The team did an amazing job. So we were always fast in these few races, but always missed pole for like 1/10 or 2/10. So it's good to be back on pole. I like wet conditions and yeah, hope to keep up for the race, you know.
Michael Blekemolen is joining the car right now. Would you recommend to stay on wet tires or go onto slicks now?
There are some parts which is still wet, a bit damp, so it's not still for sure for slicks. But like in the end of the session, it will be for slicks. So it's a bit of a lottery, you know. Let's see who gambles and who does it the best.
All right, thank you so much. Congratulations. And now we go to the EuroNASCAR 2. Back to you, Adam.
Yes, interesting there from Girelli. He mentioned that, you know, it could be dry before the end. I tend to think it may stay with wet tyres, but he will have had a more rounded lot of data to work with there. I'm just looking at the camera shots. So if someone does elect to pull that pin and move to slicks before the end of the session, that would be very brave indeed, for one. And very intriguing for two. And here are the points that I was referencing earlier on. Siortsis 13 clear of NASCAR. Paul Giffreau, Jill Linster and Thomas Dombrowski, your overall top 5. Claudio Remigio Capelli, the Legend Trophy points leader. He's 7th overall in the standings. Ariana Casoli leading the Lady Trophy points. And Thomas Dombrowski, the 5th place driver overall, leading the Rookie Trophy points. Martin Dubeck, the 2021 champion, in 6th place. Patrick Schauber in 8th. Michael Blekemolen and Nick Schneider rounding out your top 10. So we should see the cars out there any minute, although they're not yet queuing up at the end of pit lane. I suspect that the pits are currently a bit of a hive of activity as everyone gets the cars ready. Of course, if you are unfamiliar with EuroNASCAR, the same cars that were just out there in EuroNASCAR Pro will be out there again in EuroNASCAR 2. The green flag has flown and the cars are now leaving the circuit, or rather leaving the pits and heading onto the circuit. And the 20-minute quali session begins. Yes, the cars are shared. In a few instances, the cars remain with the same driver across both categories. Paul Giffreau, Vladimir Siortsis, Martin Dubeck, Thomas Tefel, among those that are doubling up, and Jack Davidson as well, of course, this weekend, as Yevgen Sokolovsky has other commitments that were found out late on. So mixed bag. A few drivers will come into this session with a lot of experience of the car on this circuit just a few minutes ago. And then the other half of the room is going to be rather less burgeoning from an experience standpoint around this circuit. So that's going to be very compelling. The likes of Giffreau, surely with a slight advantage over, say, an Alberto Nasca, who has not driven his stock car machine so far today. He has already driven today, as has the number 18 driver Claudio Remigio Capelli. Both of them were just out in qualifying for the Euro Legend category. So NASCAR and Capelli have done some driving this morning already, but in a very different machine. Pardon me. Just fighting my own microphone. Martin Dubeck coming across the line to begin his first flying lap. I think for Dubeck, he's going to want to show some more of his potential in this session, because he didn't really gel with the conditions in EuroNASCAR Pro. Can he find some more time in EN2? Not that many cars have taken to the circuit yet. I think a few have held off thus far. Maybe a few taking a leaf out of the Liam Hazeman's playbook and just waiting. Oh, Jack Davidson there, I thought for a minute was going to cross the circuit. He does now, but Dufresne on his first flying lap. Davidson, I believe, just heading out of the pit lane. And that's always complicated when you've got a kind of staggered exit from the pits. You sometimes end up with a few trying to warm up their tyres and a few already at full chat. Just got a look there at Vladimiros Siortsis as Martin Dubek continues on his way. Siortsis rather used to the dry conditions, of course. The speedy Cypriot who is always a bit of a sensation in quali. However, he's shown his wet weather mettle already this season. Where else other than Brands Hatch, of course. Brands Hatch, the only other time we've seen wettish conditions so far this year. It never really got soaking at any point. Brands Hatch, there was some saturation for the EuroNASCAR 2 competitors. I think the EuroNASCAR Pro guys managed to get away without the rain at any point. No one's been so lucky on the Saturday morning here at Most. Paul Giffreau goes fastest at this early stage, a 151.293. So again, a massive leap in performance. As Vittorio Garelli said, the circuit is improving. And you know what? That racing line around some of the corners, I would suggest, is now dry. I think they're at that bottom bend that Dubek is just powering out of, turn 10 of the 21 corners. I think that looks incredibly slick. I think that was a portion of the circuit that was resurfaced not too long ago, and it looks more than a little bit slippery, but other parts of the track look almost dry on the racing line. The problem is that about half a foot from the racing line, 6 inches to your left or right, is a lot of wet weather, and or at least a lot of wet tarmac, and you don't want to be testing the limits, especially given, firstly, the race isn't too far away for EuroNASCAR Pro, and you don't want to compromise your teammate or yourself, and secondly, because you really don't want to be the hero that takes the slicks out and, well, proves that you're not quite ready yet. You never want to be that driver. Paul Giffreau, a 147.384. .384 for Paul Giffreau then. He was only 0.16, or rather 0.016 off or ahead of Martin Dubek there. So Dubek quick as well, a 147.400. Dubek going a little bit quicker than I expected, but Paul Giffreau, 147.384, that's a very good benchmark. Now, I would be impressed if anybody's on slicks right now, but maybe we are seeing a bit of slick tyres, I don't know. Certainly there's a big leap again in pace, but as you can see, that dry line is minuscule around this circuit. Jill Linster there was about to set his first time, and a bit of side-by-side further back in the pack there. I believe that was Lena Leubnegger in the number 99 promotion car. And oh dear, Cal Racing's Roberto Benedetti doing some rally crossing at the first chicane. Easily done. I do wonder if a few are already out there on slicks. Andre Viegold has been suggesting that maybe they go out on the rain tyres, set a lap for safety, and make the or save the slick tyres, and then maybe go out with the slicks later on. I mean, again, the dry line, with almost every passing minute, it looks a little bit bigger and a little bit more tempting. But I would say it looks bigger and more tempting at about 80 to 85% of the circuit. There's about 15% of the circuit that isn't quite drying as quickly as the rest of it, and that is the big question mark in these kind of conditions. Jack Davidson, a 1:45.829 flashes up on my timing screen. That's very impressive from Jack Davidson. Oh, and side by side there between Dombrowski and Tefel. Vladimiros Tsiotsis also there or thereabouts. Again, I have to believe everyone's on the wets right now. You saw Tsiotsis there driving through the wet parts of the track without any issue. So I at least know that he is still on treaded tyres. The 1:45.829 is a mighty benchmark from Jack Davidson. Davidson capitalising on that increase in track time that comes with moving into the EuroNASCAR Pro seat for the weekend. Oh, and Tsiotsis is around. Don't get stuck in the gravel, Vladimiros. Nicely done. Tsiotsis then will carry on his way. He's currently third fastest on a 1:46.868, just behind Jill Linster on a 1:46.426. Here is Linster. So just under 6/10 off the pace of Davidson, who seems to be adapting to the changeable conditions nicely. There he is, carrying a good lick of speed through the final couple of corners. And he lowers the benchmark further, a 1:45.192 from Jack Davidson in the 48 car. Not bad going at all. Of course, regarding this potential to move to slicks before the end of the session, racing tyres, or racing tyres in general, I think. Oh, Davidson having a moment there. I was just looking down at some notes, but Davidson there overcooking it massively into turn 10. I think we may be approaching that crossover point for slick tyres now, so will anyone be brave enough? The point I was going to make there before my hair was firmly raised by Davidson was that the slicks don't like having heat cycles put through them, so if you do use them here in quali, that could make them a much worse proposition in the race. So if you can avoid using them, that's ideal. Someone who is using his current tyres to the fullest is Alberto Nasca. Alberto Nasca has just set a new benchmark, a 1:43.938 from Alberto Nasca in the Cal Racing machine. What kind of a time was that from Nasca? You can see him running here. And you know what, with that kind of grip and pace that he's showing, I would potentially speculate that this man may be on the slicks. As you saw, the poise with which the car was darting through the corners in the first sector, I think Alberto Nasca may have bolted on a pair of slick tyres, or a set of slick tyres. Hopefully not just a pair. 1 minute 43.938 is the benchmark set then by Alberto Nasca. Vladimir Osiortis on a 144.607. Jill Linster goes top, a 143.047 for Linster. Let's see if Nasca can retaliate then as he comes around the final corner. Whether he realises it or not, the benchmark has been lowered significantly by Linster. And Nasca crosses the line and only set to 1 minute 50. So Linster with a 143.047. That's everybody's new benchmark, and that is, I mean, getting on for 10 seconds, in fact over 10 seconds quicker than the fastest time from Superpole. So clearly this track is improving at a rate of knots, and I think if they aren't already on slicks, I think they kind of have to now. Razor from the world of EuroNASCAR, one of the writing staff for the EuroNASCAR website, making a great point that Linster got pole in similarly mixed conditions last year at Zolder. So Jill Linster definitely knows a thing or two about kind of picking his way through these kind of conditions, these what tyres do we pick, is it wet, is it dry conditions. So let's see if anyone can get close to the time. I think we're going to see the bar lower a few more times. I suspect we've seen some tyre changes. I don't know if Andre Viegold can confirm whether there have been tyre changes down in the pits, whether he's been able to see that or not, but I suspect that some have bolted their slicks on at this point. Oh, straight on there at the first corner. That was the 46 car, was it not? Yep, that's Nick Schneider. Currently 6th fastest out there on circuit. Heading into the final 5 minutes of the session then, it is Jill Linster with the current pace, a 143.047. Alberto Nasca with a 143.938. Third place with Vladimir Osiortis on a 144.607. Jack Davidson, a 145.192, is 5th fastest. Roberto Benedetti in the 88, 6th fastest. We've seen him have an off, but he's still set a good time. Benedetti 5th fastest, Davidson 4th. Nick Schneider in 6th position, so Schneider went straight on there, but that was just after going 6th fastest. 7th place for Marzi in the number 9 Vic Motorsport car. That's a little bit of a surprise package, but as soon as I say that, Thomas Dombrowski leaps up to 7th place in the 66 Blake-Molen entry. Marzi Dufro only in 9th place. That is certainly a surprise. And Martin Dubek in 10th place, but I have to think that there are some slicks at play now. There is the number 9 car then in the hands of the Vic Motorsport driver. Valerio Marzi, who is well in the top 10 at the moment. I think that would be the best starting grid of the season for him this year. But it's all shuffling at the top of the order because Paul Dufro has just found some time. He's just gone 2nd fastest in the number 3 car, the RDV competition number 3. Goes 2nd, just 0.573 off the pace of Linster. Davidson. Jack Davidson is back in the mix. He goes 2nd fastest, less than a 10th off, 0.027. Just under 300ths of a second off of Jill Linster's pace then is Jack Davidson. Again, Davidson, a Scotsman, a veteran of national level racing in the UK. He will have undoubtedly done some of this wet to dry stuff before. I think often in something that's front wheel drive, which is a bit of a different beast from a stock car, but nonetheless he's using his experience to his advantage. Dufro on another fast lap here, was half a second, or just under 6/10 off the pace of CEST, or just off the pace of Linster. But CEST has just gone top, so I was about to say that Linster currently the pole sitter, but Vladimiros CEST showing what he can do there as Paul Giffreau goes out wide to go around the number 40. But Vladimiros CEST has lowered the benchmark. He's the first driver into the 42s, a 1 minute 42.595. But what can Giffreau do? Because he was on a quick lap there as we cut away from him. I reckon Giffreau may cross the line at a rate of knots once again. Vladimiros CEST, though, has provisional pole. 2 minutes and 10 seconds left to go. And I think once again, as with Superpole, as particularly with the qualifying session in EuroNASCAR Pro, here in EuroNASCAR 2, it's once again going to be a matter almost of who's running at the last possible moment. Who is going to have the very best conditions of the day so far as they cross the line to complete their final flying lap. CEST then on another quick lap by the looks of it. We haven't had any improvements at the sharp end this time by the looks of it. But what about Vladimiros CEST? Can he further improve on what is already the provisional pole position time? Across the line he comes. Timing screen will kick into life, and yes, it is a marginal improvement, a 1:42.532 for Vladimiros CEST. So only gained a few hundredths of a second, but he's over half a second clear of the next fastest driver. However, we are seeing improvements. Patrick Schauber goes fourth fastest. Schauber with a 1:43.1 puts himself up to P4. 40 seconds left to go. So we're entering the last chance saloon. Now I want to see where Jack Davidson is, if at all possible, because he's currently registered in the second sector split. Will he make it in time to do one last flying lap is the big question for myself. And it also applies for Alberto NASCAR as well. Dombrowski in sector 2 also. Is Davidson going to cross the line in time to get one last flying lap? For Vladimiros CEST, this will be his final flyer. The clock is about to strike zero on his session. Davidson improves to third fastest, so he's going to get one last look at the times, as is Alberto NASCAR. Both of them are going to get one last flying lap in, and both of them have moved up the order into the 1:42 bracket. But what about Vladimiros CEST? He was the pioneer. He was the first one to get himself into the 1:42s. Can he lower the bar further as the clock has struck zero? He was about to cross the line, but we cut away from him. I'll let you know if the time improves. It does improve. A 1:42.008 from Vladimiros CEST. Can Alberto NASCAR find any speed? I think just behind him is Jack Davidson as well. Yes, okay. So the second and third fastest cars out there on circuit are running in a convoy. They crossed the line just before the clock hit zero. There will be a few cars ahead of them as well that might well secure faster times, so don't rule out the rest of the field. Jill Linster has just gone second fastest, a 1:42.504. That's a provisional front row start, but I'm not sure that's going to last, because here comes the cavalry. Here comes Linster. Here comes NASCAR. Here comes Davidson. Also Benedetti, who's seventh fastest. He's just ahead of them as well. Some of the last cars to set a flying lap in this session. Let's see if there are any improvements this time. A 1:42.008 is the benchmark for pole, and neither driver, neither NASCAR nor Davidson, can secure that pole position. For NASCAR, he improves to a 1:42.212, and for Davidson, he improves to a 1:42.279, but Vladimiros CEST seems to be unimpeachable. I don't think anyone else has a lap time to complete. I'm just looking up and down the timing screen. I think that everybody who has set a lap has already crossed the line. And that means that this man, Vladimiros Siortsis, has once again proven to be something of a qualifying king in EuroNASCAR 2. Will arguably be a little bit disappointed that he didn't show off better in EuroNASCAR Pro, but in EuroNASCAR 2, where he's fighting for the championship, he's done everything he needs to do. And look who's alongside him. The man in second place is Alberto Nasca. The man in second place is the Cypriot's main title rival. Alberto Nasca will be right there with him in the early stages. Jack Davidson will have his highest starting position of the season, I believe, in his rookie year in EuroNASCAR. I believe third fastest is the best that he's managed so far in the 2023 seasons. That's really positive for Davidson. Paul Giffreau only fourth. I thought that potentially with the running in EuroNASCAR Pro, Giffreau might be able to use that increased track experience to his advantage, but fourth on the grid is still very good. Jill Linster fifth, Patrick Schauber sixth, Roberto Benedetti, the first of the legends, seventh, Dombrowski in eighth in the 66th, Melvin de Groot in the number 69 in ninth, and the elder Bleekemolen, Mikael Bleekemolen, taking 10th fastest in that session. Very, very interesting stuff. Again, Martin Dubek. I'm surprised by Dubek. At 1 minute 47.4 was all he could do. Only 16th fastest. Strikes me that Dubek doesn't like these conditions terribly much. You would think he likes the circuit because it's his home facility. Martin Dubek, though, not really showing his hand in that quali session. Interesting bit of information here that Vladimiros Siortsis, with this pole position, has now made history. The most pole positions of anyone in the history of EuroNASCAR 2. 12 pole positions to his record now. He was previously tied in that honour with Tobias Downhauer, 11 apiece. Siortsis makes it number 12. Well, it doesn't get much better in terms of writing the metaphorical script of a motor race than having the championship top two alongside each other. That is exactly what we will get when EuroNASCAR 2 go racing later on. They'll be racing just after 5 o'clock local time. Of course, in terms of the racing action here today, it'll be 20 past 1 Central European summertime that we see the first racing, the EuroNASCAR Pro's round number 7 at 13:20, otherwise known as 20 past midday on the UK time zone, 7:20 Eastern. So that's going to be exciting to see how the conditions fare, because again, yes, it's sunny at the moment, but you can also see some cloud coverage at the back of shot. I think it's going to be one of those unpredictable days where your eyes tell you about as much as the radar. We'll have to see whether we get any surprise packages in the EuroNASCAR Pro race. I think there could be a few. It strikes me as one of those weekends where we can only expect the unexpected. But In terms of the racing action, it will be 13:20, 1:20 p.m. Central European when EuroNASCAR Pro head out. And for the EuroNASCAR 2 drivers, it's an extended break. They'll be back out at 4 p.m., so 5 p.m. I should say, Central European. So they've got a nice little break. But I don't think there's a break for our pole sitter. He'll have some media duties in the not too distant future, as I hear word that a wild Andre Viegold has headed down towards CEST, and we'll hear from them shortly. But Vladimir CEST, with that record-setting pole position, he's going to have a lot to be happy about coming into the race later on. He's got some work to do in EuroNASCAR Pro, of course, from the 5th row of the grid, but in his main campaign, in his title battle with Alberto Nasca, he has struck the first blow in the Czech Republic. We'll look to see how he capitalises from there. There is the pole award. There is the Cypriot sensation Vladimir CEST, and he's with Andre Viegold.
Thank you so much, Adam. I'm here with the pole sitter in EuroNASCAR 2. Another pole position for you. How was it out there?
Yeah, it was really cool at the end. At the beginning, of course, it was not a sure decision if we continue with wet or dry tires, so I took the decision, the right decision that I didn't took last year in Zolder, and I fall down to 8th place on the last lap because I was on wet, so I just bet on that, let's say. And yes, I take the decision to put the dry from the beginning, and the time came at the last lap.
How was it in the beginning of the qualifying to be on the dry tires when the track was still a little bit of damp and wet?
Well, it was slippery, but better than I was expecting, really, because I was almost not sure if we would continue with the dry. But okay, everything went well. At the beginning, I found a lot of traffic in front of me. But yes, we are here. This is the most important, and we keep pushing.
All right, thank you so much. We go back to Adam, and we will be back with the races here today at Saturday.
Well, congratulations to our two pole sitters, to Vladimir CEST and Vittorio Gorelli. They will head into the races later on this afternoon with all the momentum in the world. Pole position is just the G-up that a driver needs, and it's just the indication that Vladimir CEST's title rivals need to say that the number 5 driver for Alex Caffey Academy of Motorsport is going nowhere. So then, for the rest of the day, make sure you keep an eye on the EuroNASCAR YouTube channel, because at 13:20 Central European Summertime, as you can see, the EuroNASCAR Pros will be rolling, and at 5 p.m. following that, we will have the EuroNASCAR 2s out there. So, 2 exciting races to come. What kind of weather will our crews be greeted with? Lots of questions to answer this weekend in Most, and some of the most important ones will soon be answered when we go racing in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series for the first time since summer break. Make sure you join us to catch all the action from this incredible circuit in the heart of the Czech Republic.
When you come to Kladno, treat yourself to an experience you will remember. Enjoy the luxurious ambience. Experience superior service. Indulge in endless pleasures. The pearl of the tourism offer in the pearl of the Adriatic. Wybornia, Hotels and Villas.